When embarking on digital transformation journeys, many executives and project teams expect a zero customization approach to implementation, but that's a very flawed approach, and I'm going to talk about what I mean by that here today. My name is Eric Kimberling. I'm the CEO and founder of Third Stage Consulting. We're an independent consulting firm that helps clients through their digital transformation journeys. And one of the big challenges with ERP implementations is the expectation that we are going to implement a solution with zero customization. And one of the problems with zero customization is it rarely ever happens. In fact, our research over the years found that 90% or more of organizations end up doing some sort of customization during their digital transformation or ERP projects. And B, it sets unrealistic expectations. If we go into a project with the expectation of no customization, we're inevitably going to take longer and cost more money than if we had realistic expectations to begin with. So customization, while it's something we want to try to avoid if we can, it's also something that we have to recognize as a potential necessary evil, and I want to talk today about how to balance and navigate that fine line. So the first thing we have to recognize is that configuration only gets us so far during a digital transformation. When we're implementing new technology, there's a certain amount of flexibility that comes with the software that we've purchased, the commercial off-the-shelf software that we've purchased. And a lot of times vendors will sell or tout the pre-configured solutions, the industry accelerators, the best practices, the boilerplate templates, the things that are meant to make configuration easier and tailored for your industry. But the problem is that every organization is different, and every organization has unique needs that are competitive advantages, that are things they should be doing differently, and that if ERP systems could do all those things, wouldn't be competitive advantages anymore. So customization is something that is a way out of that problem or that dilemma of being boxed into a configuration limitation of whatever technology you've acquired. Now, this need for flexibility and the opportunity to use customization as a way to enhance the flexibility of the software you have is important, especially for complex organizations, for diversified organizations, global organizations, and in general, bigger organizations have a greater need for more flexibility and therefore oftentimes more customization. I'm going to talk later in this video about why customization isn't always a good idea, but before we get there, we want to first understand that customization isn't always a bad thing, and sometimes it is a necessary evil. So I mentioned how customization is a necessary evil. Sometimes you simply have to customize, and there's certain parts of your business that are inherently different. Now, the one caveat to this is if you have organizational change issues within your organization, people that don't want to change, they have always done things the same way, they've always had the same manual processes or same spreadsheets or whatever the case may be, that in and of itself is not a good reason to customize your software. But if you have unique competitive differentiators, things that are unique to you as an organization, it's what wins you customers, it's why customers are buying your product, it's what makes you an excellent organization, those types of things, if your ERP system can't support it out of the box with basic configuration, you should absolutely customize. Or at the very least, if you don't customize, look for some sort of third-party bolt-on or maybe even a manual process that will support that. But by all means, don't back yourself into a corner and say, we have a zero customization policy or a zero customization approach, so therefore we're just going to live with whatever limitations our ERP system has. And the final point to note here is that every ERP system has its limitations. By definition and by nature, ERP systems are trying to be everything to everyone. And on the one hand, the beauty of that is that you have a single integrated system, but the downside or the dark side is that it can't do everything perfectly the way you might want that software to work. So for those reasons, customization is something, while you may want to be selective in where you customize, it's typically a necessary evil for most organizations and most transformations. Now, even though customization is a necessary evil, it's also a slippery slope. Once you start customizing just one little thing in the system, and once you realize that you can customize, it becomes very easy to justify all the reasons why you might need to customize other parts of the ERP system. So it's a very slippery slope and a dangerous slope, quite frankly. And so in order to avoid that challenge of going too far down the path of too much customization, it's very important to have solid project governance and controls in place. And this is where a business case early in a project can be absolutely critical to providing that sort of governance. And you may wonder, what does a business case have to do with customization? And it has a lot to do with customization. And what I mean by that is your business case will tell you what sort of quantifiable business benefits you would expect to get from the technology. And it gives you a sort of governance mechanism to go back and look to say, if we were to customize functionality A, B, or C, and invest this amount of time and money and risk into the project by implementing that functionality, what is the business benefit we'll get out of that? And without that sort of governance or justification process in place, it can be very difficult to rationalize or justify why we should or shouldn't go down the path of customization. So customization is absolutely a slippery slope. You want to try to avoid and minimize it as much as you can, but there are going to be difficult decisions you'll have as an organization and as a team as to whether or not you should actually customize. And so the way around that and the way to navigate that is with a solid business case. Now, I mentioned earlier in the video about how it's important to differentiate between the types of changes that people are flat out resisting versus the types of changes that are competitive to your organization. And for that reason, organizational change and customization are two very interrelated things. What we find is that companies that don't invest well in organizational change management end up customizing more than organizations that do invest in organizational change management. And the reason for that is what I alluded to before, which is if we don't manage the change and help people transition to the new environment, they're going to dig in their heels, push back, and change the software because they can. And as a form of resistance, they'll request to customize the software to fit their needs and their comfortable view of the world. So it's very important to recognize that even if we take a zero customization policy or stance, and we think we're saving time and money there, which we may be, we actually are shifting the pressure now onto organizational change management. And now the bigger pressure point and bottleneck becomes how well can we manage people. So even though organizational change management is always important in any sort of digital transformation, it's especially important if you are pursuing a zero customization type of policy. So it's very important to recognize the interrelation between those two concepts and the fact that just because you cut money or time on one of those things doesn't mean you've also cut money and time on the other. All you've really done is shifted the time, cost, and risk around from one variable to the other. So organizational change and customization have a very direct correlation during digital transformations. So one of the big takeaways here is that we know we're going to have to customize in most likely scenarios. We know it's going to cost us more time and money and risk than we would like, but it's a necessary evil. We can put the right project governance and controls in place so that we can avoid customization where possible, but we want to absolutely make sure that we have accounted for customization to some degree within our implementation plan. And this is why it's so important to recognize where the warts are, the deficiencies of your chosen ERP system. Because even if you know it's the best fit for you and that's the direction you're going, you want to make sure you've poked as many holes in that software as you can before you've put together the implementation plan and before you've gotten the budgetary approval for the overall implementation, because the level of customization is going to affect your overall implementation time, cost, risk, resourcing plan, all that good stuff. So really make sure you understand the magnitude of customization you think you're going to have, and rather than going into the project of thinking of it as zero customization, therefore we're going to plan for out of the box 100% no customization, instead we shift our mindset to we're going to customize only where absolutely necessary and estimate how much of the software you may need to customize and translate your implementation plan and budget to account for those factors. And that's a critical step that a lot of organizations and their consultants miss in the whole implementation planning process. So the bottom line is customization is probably going to be an issue you'll have to deal with on your digital transformation or ERP project. Embrace it, recognize it, acknowledge it. Don't hide from it, but certainly manage it, minimize it, and do what you can to keep that part of the project under control. A lot of projects get off the rails and get completely out of control because they over-customize. So I'm not at all suggesting just to have an open checkbook or an open approach to customization, but you do want to recognize that it is a necessary evil, something you'll have to deal with during your project. And having the right project governance, the right objective view of your chosen ERP system, and a proper and solid implementation plan and budget are all things you can do to mitigate those risks. So I hope you found this information useful. I've also included a number of links below that'll help you through your digital transformation journey. I encourage you to reach out to me if you'd like to brainstorm ideas on how to plan for customization or just how to plan for your transformation in general. I'd be happy to be a sounding board for you as you go through your journey. Hope you have a great day, and we'll chat with you soon.